Hey friends! Welcome to this episode of Outside with Detroit Public Library. I'm your host, Emily. I'm from the Bowen Branch Library, and today we are at a very special place. If you can see, we're at the farm! So let's go take a tour. Here we are at the farm, and we're going to meet a couple of special new friends in this episode. We walk through our big main door here. So the first rule on the farm is that if there is a gate that is closed, when you come in, you close it behind you. If there's a gate that's open, you leave it open because it's probably that way for a reason. Check out our awesome tractor. And we're going to head on in to meet our friends. So on this farm, the first thing that we do when we come in is we walk through this beautiful indoor arena. So this is a great place for people to come and ride, if they're going to come and ride a horse, if it's raining outside. So it's a little rainy today, as you can see. Oh, there's a pigeon. These are the gates that we just looked at from the outside. And I don't know if you could hear, but there was a special someone that was talking to us as we came in. Once again, we're going to open and close this gate very carefully, because remember, the first rule is that we close the gate behind us. Hi guys, you want to say hello? This is Jazz. Jazz is a gray female. A female horse is called a mare, and she is what we call a percheron mix. So a percheron is a type of draft horse, a horse that was bred to pull wagons and carts and things like that. And if you look down, you can see she's got nice big feet. That helps, and she's got a big stocky body. And we don't use her to pull things here, but that's what her breed was originally for. Hi, Jazz! Pretty girl. I hear a new friend coming up behind us. This is Nino. Nino is a miniature donkey. He sort of gets to roam around the farm. Say hi, Nino. Good boy, Nino. If we come on over here, this is my best buddy, Dakota. He might stick his nose out to say hello. There he is. Hi, buddy. Dakota is a Percheron Appaloosa cross. Once again, that Percheron is a draft horse that's bred for pulling things, and an Appaloosa is descended from the horses of the Spanish conquistadors when they came over to the United States. Appaloosa is also a color pattern, so you can see on his hide that he's not all gray. There's some brown, red color spots, and that color we call roan. Hi, buddy. Now over here, we're going to meet a new friend. This is Pearl. Pearl is a beautiful black horse, as you can see. That's a pretty white stripe down her front nose. And she has what we call socks on her feet. She's got white spots on her feet. Pearl is known as a Tennessee walking horse. She is another American breed. And she's a good girl too. Pearl's a little skittish because she's blind in one eye. So she's a little more nervous than the other ones. Hi, baby girl. So I've brought Dakota out for us to see. You can see that pretty roan color we called it earlier. It's nice and deep on that back leg there. Now what we have him in here is, this is called a halter. It holds on to his face, just like you would use a leash on a dog. It just sort of keeps him where I want him to be and lets me guide him. What you see him attached to here, these are called cross ties. They come across the barn aisle and just keep him where I want him in the middle of the aisle so that he can't wander off. We're going to introduce you to some of the tools that we would use for grooming and cleaning a horse next. Some of the tools that we would use to groom him, I have a selection here. Maybe you can help me name them. This one will look familiar to you. This is just a normal hairbrush, right? We would use this to clean out his hair. This is his mane, and it's hair just like your hair or my hair is, and it gets knotty and tangled and has to be brushed just like yours and mine does. If we come around the back end here, you see this is his tail. And once again, his tail has to be brushed just like yours or mine does. This next item on our list here, This is called a hoof pick. And the way that horses' feet are constructed is sort of like a fingernail. So this part right here is made out of the same thing your fingernails are made out of. It just grows in one big chunk, unlike ours. But if we pick up his foot, pick it up, come on, up. If we pick up his foot, you can see it's kind of dirty in there, right? Now there's a very sensitive part of his foot right in the middle here, and I'll show you in a second once I've cleaned it out, called the frog. And the frog is sort of like your cuticle, where it's a little bit sensitive. So we use this hoof pick to make sure that there's no stones or rocks that are caught up in his feet that could bruise him and hurt him later. This here is called a curry brush. This one is used like this. You fit it over your hand, and then I would put it up against his side and rub it in circles. We rub it in circles, and that lifts all of the dirt and the dead skin cells and anything that might be caught in his hair up out of his hair. You see he's shedding. This is so that when we put a saddle on him later, he's nice and comfortable and there's nothing rubbing against it. This last item is called a hard brush. And a hard brush is used after a curry brush, like this. This scoops away any of the dirt or hair that we have brushed off with the curry. Now this hard brush is the most useful of all of our tools because this hard brush can get used on any part of his body. You can't use a curry comb on a face or his legs because that would hurt him. There's not as much muscle there to protect him. But this brush, because it's a little bit softer, we can go ahead and brush his legs too, and that'll clean out any dirt that may be there. So now that I've used all of those tools to groom him, you can get a good look at his feet, and you can see that this section right here is different than this section. So this channel in between the two is pretty sensitive, and if he got a rock stuck in it and stepped on it while we were riding, it could bruise this part that's called the frog. And that would hurt. He wouldn't be very happy about that. Since we talked about cleaning him up and how to take care of his body, next we're going to look at some of the equipment that we might use if we were going to ride Dakota. So you'll see that there's two different items here. These are both saddles, and this is what a person would sit in. You'll notice some big differences though. This saddle here, this is called an English saddle, and an English saddle comes from, you guessed it, England. It was designed for riders who were hunting or who needed to move swiftly to deliver a message. So it's nice and light and enables the riders to get off of the horse's back if you're riding for a long period of time. This saddle here, this is what we know in the US as a Western saddle. Now the Western saddle was designed for cowboys to use. You'll notice that there's a couple of different things about a Western and English saddle. The Western saddle has a much deeper seat. It's a little bit more padded than the English saddle for long hours chasing cattle or whatever it was cowboys were doing. You'll also notice something in the front there. That's called a horn. And the horn was used for those cowboys who were roping cows or cattle. Because what happens if you throw a rope around a cow's neck and hold on to that rope? That's right, you get pulled out of your saddle, right? The cow runs one way, you run the other. The cow's going to win. He's a lot bigger than you are. So cowboys put this horn on their saddle so that they could wrap the horse around the rope around the saddle. This keeps the cowboy from being pulled out of his seat and attaches the cow firmly to the horse. So the other couple of things about this saddle that are different is you'll notice that this back here, this is called the cantle. This is a little bit higher up than on the English saddle. This is also called the cantle. In the front here is the pommel and the pommel. And then down at the bottom, we see these things called stirrups. On an English saddle, they're called irons. On a Western saddle, they're called stirrups. You'll see that there's a nice big leather flap here, so that if the cowboy was riding for a long time, it keeps his leg from rubbing against the horse's side. It's a little more comfortable. You'll notice that the stirrup down here is a little bit thicker and wider than is on the English saddle. Now this is called a stirrup leather. And when we ride, we pull it out here. And it's a lot thinner, right? This gives you a little bit more flexibility if you're jumping over things, or if you're needing to go really fast. It lets you move your legs a little bit more. This is called an iron. You can see it's a little more narrow than that Western saddle stirrup was. A little less comfortable for long rides. In addition to these, there's two different ways to attach a saddle to a horse. On a Western saddle, we have what's called a cinch. This would go underneath the horse's belly and come out this side here, where it gets looped into this piece of roping and tied up around underneath. On an English saddle, we don't have that. We don't have a cinch. We have a girth. You can see it's not connected here. The girth is a whole separate part of our saddle. If we come over here, I can show you one. This is a girth. Girth is a little bit lighter. It's not as well padded. You can see that there's two buckles. There's two buckles on each side, and those connect into the tabs that are underneath the flaps here. See those tabs? There's 3 of them so that you can choose, right? If one breaks, if one separates, if you need a different placement on the horse's body because it wraps under the horse's belly, you can use a different tab. The next item that we're going to talk about here, this is called a bridle. So the halter, which we learned about earlier, is for when we're not riding. The halter is kind of like a collar for a dog. A bridle is a little bit more like a leash, so it has some different parts. You'll see that it has a forehead band. This goes around in front of his eyes. You'll get to see it later. This section up here goes over the top of his ears. And then there's this in the middle. This is called a bit. This is specifically a snaffle bit. You see how it's separated in the middle. This goes in the horse's mouth. Horses' mouths are constructed a little bit interestingly. They have teeth in the front and the back, but not the middle. So the bit sits in the middle section against their gums and gives the rider control, just like you would with if you were using a leash on a dog. Having control of the horse's head lets you tell him where to go. It doesn't hurt him. It doesn't pinch him. You'll notice that there's 2 different colors. One is copper and one is silver. The copper has a different flavor. So for horses that are particularly smart, like Dakota over there, or who get bored easily, it gives them a different texture and flavor to experience while they're working. Connected to the bridle, we have reins. These loop over the horse's head and are what the rider holds onto in order to control the horse. So now that we've learned about all of the horse's equipment, we're going to learn about some of mine. Because the first rule of horses is safety. They're much bigger than we are, and if we don't protect ourselves, it's very easy for us to get hurt. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that I have on long pants. These are called breeches. These breeches protect my legs from rubbing against the saddle or against Dakota, and if we're riding outside, they'll protect my legs from any bugs that might get at me. As we go further down, you'll see that I have on special boots. The boots on my feet here, this part here, is called a field boot or a short boot. And then over the top of my breeches, I have what's called a half chat. This protects my legs extra where they would rub against Dakota. In addition to this, I'm going to be wearing, this is the most important piece of equipment. Those field boots do really well if you accidentally get stepped on or whatever so that they don't hurt your feet. But the most important piece of equipment is this. That's right, it's a helmet. Not dissimilar to the one that you might wear if you're out riding your bike. This helmet protects my head if I fall off, if he kicks, if I walk into something. This helmet keeps me safe. It is the most important piece of protection equipment, and I never want to hear of any of you getting on a horse without one. The very last item that I wear is a glove. I wear gloves on both hands. They protect my hands if he pulls his head back. While I'm riding, they keep my hands safe from the leather of the reins that could burn really bad if he pulls his head. But he's a good boy, and he doesn't do that very often. I don't want you to be afraid of horses. They're gentle and kind and mostly very wonderful, but accidents do happen, and protecting yourself from those accidents is very, very important. So before I get on, I'm going to give you a chance to see how Dakota moves. You will see in the video, you will see this length of stick with rope at the end. This is called a lunge whip. It is not for hitting him with. We never hit horses. It is just so that he gets a cue from me about how fast he needs to go and where he needs to move. And if he gets too close to me, since he is out here without a lunge line, we want to make sure that everybody's safe. All right, buddy, let's see a walk. Come on. Come on. He's feeling a little lazy today, I think. Hop up, walk on. So in our walk, Dakota, come on. In our walk, you will see that he moves each of his 4 feet independently from the others. There's a 4-beat count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a little bit different than anything that we're going to see in any of his other speeds. So this is just a walk. Pretty simple. He walks just like we do. He just has 4 feet instead of 2. We see a trot. You'll see the diagonal feet move together. Up. This is his second speed. It falls in between a walk and a canter. See if he'll do it again. Up. Coda. It's a pretty canter. Up. Good trot, Pearl. So Dakota and I are going to get ready to ride here. Come on, buddy. I hope you enjoyed our adventure at the farm with Detroit Public Library Outdoors. Let's take a look. I've got a quick question for you before we go. Dakota wants to say hi. Do you remember which saddle this is? If you guessed English, you guessed right. Good job, everyone. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come on. There you go. Good boy. Say hi, Dakota. Keep an eye out for a story time with Miss Allison. She's going to be reading you Big Red Barn to go along with this fun activity at the farm. I hope you enjoyed your time, and I'm going to enjoy my ride. Have a good afternoon. Good boy. That was much